She stole my fiancé grandma's will, made me CEO, and cost her 8 At my sister's wedding, I walked in wearing white. 200 guests turned at once, gasps rolling through St. Catherine's Cathedral like a wave. Is that Fiona? She wore white. The whispers grew thick with disbelief. I felt every eye on me, but my steps stayed steady, heels striking the burgundy runner like a metronome. At the altar, Sophia glowed, draped in ivory silk and crowned with roses. My little sister, the one who'd stolen the life I'd been building. Marcus, standing beside her in the same tux we had chosen for our wedding, lost the color in his face when he saw me. I didn't flinch. I sat 3 rows from the back, the dress hugging me like a dare. Not just any dress, my dress. The one I'd bought for a future she decided belonged to her. The tension swelled. My mother twisted in her seat, her pearls trembling. My father's jaw clenched so hard I could see it twitch from across the aisle. Even Father Michael stumbled over his opening lines. Everyone expected me to break, to cry, to cause a scene. But I wasn't there to lose control. I was there because of what they didn't know. In my purse, a small wooden box waited. Inside, 6 months of patience, decades of being overlooked, and the kind of truth that cuts cleaner than rage ever could. 2 weeks earlier, the invitation had landed in my mailbox. Pearl cardstock, the exact design I'd chosen for my wedding. Same font, same ink. And tucked inside a handwritten note in Sophia's looping script. Dearest Fiona, I know this might be difficult, but family should celebrate family. Come see what true love looks like. We'd hate for you to miss it. It wasn't just cruel, it was calculated. A weapon disguised as handwriting. That night, Rachel, my best friend, had begged me not to go. She wants to humiliate you, Fee. Don't give her the chance. But Rachel didn't know what I knew. She didn't know about Grandma Eleanor's will, sealed 6 months earlier. She didn't know about the lawyer's words. Your grandmother was deliberate. She wanted you to wait until the time was right. Now here we were, 6 months to the day since Grandma's death. 6 months exactly the moment the will would unlock. And the timing my sister's wedding was no accident. The organ-swelled bridesmaids glided down the aisle, faces tight with pity and smirks. Sophia finally appeared radiant and smug, walking towards a future she believed she'd stolen. When her eyes met mine, I saw it, the flicker of uncertainty she couldn't quite hide. I rested my hand on the purse. The box pressed against my palm, solid, real, waiting. Let her enjoy this moment, I thought. Let her think she's won. Because patience, as Grandma once whispered, isn't weakness. Patience is the quiet before the world shifts. And today, the world was about to shift for everyone. If this had been the first time Sophia stole something from me, maybe I could have swallowed it. Maybe I could have told myself it was a mistake, an accident, just sisters colliding in the same orbit. But it wasn't. It never was. Sophia's betrayals had a rhythm, a signature written into every stage of my life. And if you've ever had a sibling who seemed born to eclipse you, you'll understand the kind of exhaustion that comes from always being second to someone who never deserved first. It started small. 16 years old, I got straight A's worked. After school, saved every dime. I dreamed of buying my first car with money I earned myself. Dad sat me down, said I needed to learn responsibility, handed me a bus pass. A week later, Sophia turned 16. She got a white BMW with a red bow in the driveway. She's just more social, Mom said, brushing off my tears. She needs it more. When I made varsity tennis, Sophia suddenly decided she was interested in sports. She flirted with the coach, got bumped up from JV, and somehow wound up at my side during the championship photo. Everyone called us the Anderson sisters, so talented. But only one of us had the bruises, the blisters, the trophies earned by sweat. The pattern repeated everywhere. My prom date. She kissed him in his car and cried that he came on to her. My internship at Preston Architecture. She charmed the partners into believing she was better at client relations. My scholarship portfolio, 3 years of work, disappeared the day before the interview. Sophia found it water damaged and ruined, but somehow slid into the scholarship spot herself. And my parents. They applauded her initiative. Every time. While I was told to be the bigger person. Do you know what that does to someone? To always be the draft, the prototype, while your sister gets to be the masterpiece. So when Marcus came along, I should have known. I met him at an architecture conference in Chicago. He was charming, ambitious. The kind of man who made you feel like the only person in a crowded room. For 2 years, we built something I thought was real. Late nights, drafting designs, whispered dreams of our own firm, even house hunting in the suburbs. He proposed under the summer sky, a ring that had once belonged to my grandmother sparkling on my finger. I thought I'd finally won something Sophia couldn't touch. But then came Thanksgiving. Sophia breezed home from Miami, all golden hair and influencer confidence. She saw my ring, saw the way Marcus looked at me, and her eyes sharpened like a hawk spotting prey. By Christmas, she was texting him work stuff. She didn't work in architecture. By Valentine's Day, she was tagging along on our dinner dates. What a coincidence, she'd laugh sliding into our booth. By April, I was finding her earrings in my bedroom. Marcus swore I was paranoid. She's your sister. Don't be dramatic. 3 weeks later, I came home early from a business trip. I'll never forget the sound I made when I opened the bedroom door. It wasn't even human. But worse than the betrayal itself were the words Marcus threw like knives. She's everything you're not. Spontaneous, fun, exciting, not boring like you. They moved in together the next week. Our parents threw them a housewarming party. I wasn't invited. But Mom called just to tell me how happy they looked. That's when I realized this wasn't just a betrayal. It was the culmination of a lifetime of them. Sophia's masterpiece. And still, I kept silent. I let the world believe their fairy tale. At work, people whispered. At family dinners, my absence was a joke. On social media, Sophia flaunted my life, my vendors, my honeymoon plans, my dress. She thought she'd won. But what she never understood is that stealing isn't the same as owning. She could take my fiancé, my vendors, even my wedding date. But she never looked closely at what she was stealing. She didn't see the debt Marcus hid, the fraud he committed, the rot beneath the charm. And she definitely didn't see what Grandma had seen or what was waiting in that wooden box. Patience. That was Grandma's word. And sitting in that cathedral watching Sophia walk down the aisle toward the man who destroyed my life, I finally understood. Patience isn't silence. Patience is strategy. And I was done being the bigger person. 2 weeks before the wedding, the envelope landed on my doorstep like a live grenade. Sophia's handwriting on the front. My stomach dropped the moment I saw it. I knew. Before I even tore it open, before my eyes traced the heavy pearl cardstock, I knew what it was. The same font, the same calligrapher, the exact design I had chosen for my wedding. Except this time, it wasn't my name inside. It was hers. Sophia Anderson and Marcus Thompson cordially invite you. I couldn't finish the sentence. My fingers shook as I flipped the card over, and there it was, a handwritten note tucked inside. Dearest Fiona, I know this might be difficult, but family should celebrate family. Come see what true love looks like. We'd hate for you to miss it. Love always, Sophie and Marcus. That note, those words, the cruelty wasn't casual. It was deliberate. She wasn't just marrying my fiancé. She was twisting the knife, daring me to bleed in public. I sat at my kitchen table, staring at it for what felt like hours. My coffee went cold. My pulse hammered in my ears. For years, I had let her win. For years, I had let my parents excuse her behavior with lines like Sophia's just spirited. Or you're the mature one, Fiona. Be the bigger person. But this wasn't spirited. This wasn't immaturity. This was war. I called Rachel my best friend. She begged me not to go. Don't give them what they want, Fee. They're trying to humiliate you. But Rachel didn't know what I knew. She didn't know about the meeting I'd had just a week earlier with James Mitchell, Grandma's lawyer. She didn't know about the documents locked in his office safe, waiting for the exact right moment. The timing wasn't coincidence. Grandma's will had a clause one no one in my family knew about but me. It had been sealed for 6 months per her instructions. And the 6-month mark, it fell exactly on Sophia's wedding day. So when Rachel said, please don't go, I whispered into the phone, I have to. They think I'm broken. They think they've won, but they have no idea what I'm holding. That night, I couldn't sleep. I walked the apartment in circles, the invitation lying face up on the coffee table like a dare. Come see what true love looks like. What does true love look like, I wondered. Is it a man who opens credit cards in your name without asking? Is it a sister who's been jealous of you since childhood, who takes everything you have just to watch you suffer? Or is true love something quieter, a grandmother who saw you when no one else did, who left behind not just words of comfort, but an entire strategy to protect you? I opened the wooden box again, the one James had given me after our last meeting. Inside the documents sat waiting. Legal filings, property deeds, patents, letters, and Grandma's neat cursive. Evidence of something bigger than a family feud. Sophia wanted me humiliated. She wanted me erased. She thought this wedding was her coronation. But I realized something as I traced my fingers over Grandma's signature on the last page of the will. This wasn't going to be her crowning moment. It was going to be mine. I picked up my phone and texted Marcus. He answered on the third ring, voice trembling. Fiona, I can explain. Save it for someone who cares. I cut him off. I just wanted to make sure you're happy with your choice. Silence. Then a nervous laugh. I what? $8 million, Marcus. I hope she's worth it. I hung up before he could respond. Let him lose sleep. Let him scramble. Men like Marcus always thought they were the smartest one in the room. Tomorrow, in front of 200 guests, and God himself, he was about to learn otherwise. I slid the invitation back into its envelope. For the first time since this nightmare began, I felt calm. Not happy, not healed, but calm. Because Sophia thought she was pulling the strings. But really, she just walked into Grandma's final design. Patience, my dear. That was what Grandma always told me. Patience? And now my patience was about to pay off. The knock on my apartment door came just after 9 on Friday night. I knew before I opened it. My family never came here, not once. Not in all the years I'd lived alone. The only reason they'd show up now was to try and control me. When I swung the door open, there they were, Mom in her Chanel suit, Dad looking grim, and Aunt Patricia clutching her pearls like she'd just stepped out of a 1950s melodrama. The family enforcer. I almost laughed. This has gone far enough, Dad barked the moment I stepped aside. He sank into my couch like he owned it, already sweating through his pressed shirt. You will not ruin your sister's wedding. I'm not ruining anything, I said evenly. I was invited. I'll be there. You don't understand. Mom cut in, her voice trembling, but her eyes sharp. The company needs this wedding to go smoothly. Marcus's family. Marcus's family, I repeated, leaning against the counter. The same Marcus who cheated on me with your daughter. That Marcus. Don't be cruel. Aunt Patricia snapped, clutching her pearls tighter. Families overcome things. This union is about more than feelings. It's about survival. I tilted my head. Whose survival? Because from where I'm standing, I'm the one who lost a fiancé, a career opportunity, and my dignity in front of half the city. Seems like I've already paid the price. Dad's face turned purple. Don't be dramatic. This is business. Marcus's family has connections, investments. Without them? You mean without their money? I interrupted. Because last I checked, Anderson and Associates is 3 months from bankruptcy. Isn't that right, Dad? The room froze. I hadn't meant to reveal that yet, but the satisfaction of watching their faces pale was worth it. You don't know what you're talking about, Dad muttered, shifting in his seat. Patterson contract fell through, didn't it? I pressed. Loans taken out against assets you don't even own. Grandma's assets. Mom's eyes darted to him wide. How do you know that? Doesn't matter, I said softly. What matters is that you want me quiet. You think if I don't show up tomorrow, everything will look perfect. But here's the truth. Nothing about this family is perfect. Not the business. Not the marriage. Not you. Enough, Dad roared, standing so suddenly, the lamp rattled. If you show up tomorrow, if you embarrass us, consider yourself cut off. No inheritance, no help, nothing. I smiled, then slow and deliberate. You already cut me off when you handed Sophia my life on a silver platter. You think I'm afraid of losing scraps? I don't need your money. I don't need your approval. And tomorrow the only thing anyone will see is the truth you've all been hiding. Aunt Patricia huffed, her pearls rattling. Ungrateful girl. Your grandmother would be ashamed. That one almost broke me, but I steadied myself. Funny, I said, walking to the coffee table and pulling the wooden box into my lap. Because Grandma left me something. Something you don't know about. And if she were ashamed of anyone, it wouldn't be me. The air went heavy. For the first time in my life, they didn't know what to say. They looked at each other, desperate, searching for a script that didn't exist. Finally, Mom whispered, "What's in the box?" I hugged it close. "Patience," I said. Grandma always said patience changes everything. They left soon after, rattled and shaken. Dad slammed the door. Mom cried in the hallway. Aunt Patricia muttered curses under her breath. I stayed on the couch, holding the wooden box, listening to their voices fade. And for the first time in years, I didn't feel small. I felt dangerous. Tomorrow wasn't just a wedding. It was an execution. The morning of the wedding arrived gray and heavy, like the sky itself was waiting for a storm. I didn't sleep much the night before, but I didn't need sleep. I needed clarity, and that I had in abundance. On the back of my closet door hung the dress. My dress. White Versace tailored perfectly to my frame, pearls stitched into silk like constellations sewn into fabric. I'd bought it for my wedding day, back when I still believed Marcus was the man I'd build a future with. Back when I still believed Sophia would clap for me instead of clawing at what was mine. I slipped into it, slowly savoring the ritual. Every button fastened was another nail in the coffin of the old Fiona, the quiet sister, the dutiful daughter, the invisible one. Today, I wasn't invisible. Today, I would blind them all. As I zipped it up, I remembered Sophia's voice from the phone call 2 nights before. Just don't wear white or anything psycho. I smiled at my reflection. If she thought white was psycho, she had no idea what was coming. Makeup, light hair, pinned back pearl earrings that had once belonged to Grandma Eleanor. A final touch of red lipstick, bold and defiant. I studied myself in the mirror. Not a victim, not the discarded fiancé. A reckoning wrapped in silk. The wooden box sat on my dresser, its weight pulling at the air in the room. I tucked it into my purse, its edges pressing into me like a reminder patience had finally run out. By noon, the cathedral bells were already chiming. Guests would be arriving, all polished shoes and whispered gossip, ready to witness a fairy tale. They thought they were coming for love. They were coming for blood, though they didn't know it yet. I arrived in a black car. Not a limo, too obvious. Just a clean, sleek sedan. The driver opened my door and I stepped out into the September sunlight. The stained glass windows of St. Catherine's Cathedral shimmered above me like shards of ice. The first gasp came from the usher at the door. His eyes flicked over the white dress, widened, then darted nervously toward the pews inside. He didn't say a word, just handed me a program with shaking hands. The cathedral was packed. 200 heads turned at once when I entered, the organ music faltering for just a second, as if even the organist had lost his place. Whispers cascaded like falling dominoes. Is that Fiona? She wore white. Oh my God, she wore white? Does Sophia know she's here? I walked down the aisle, not to an altar, but to my seat. Row 3, from the back. Deliberate, calm, measured. My heels clicked against the burgundy carpet, each sound cutting through the murmurs like punctuation marks in a confession. From the front, I felt my mother's eyes snap toward me. Her mouth open and closed like a fish out of water. Dad's jaw locked so tight, I thought it might shatter. But it was Sophia's face I wanted. And when she turned, when she saw me shimmering in white, her composure cracked. She grabbed Marcus's arm, whispering furiously, her lips tight with panic. He looked up and froze. His face drained of all color. Good, let them wonder. Let them squirm. I sat crossed my legs, elegantly placed the program in my lap like nothing was out of place. The cathedral buzzed with electricity, now 200 strangers waiting to see if the discarded sister was going to combust. The wedding coordinator scurried down the aisle, flustered. Miss Anderson, she whispered urgently, leaning down. We weren't expecting. My invitation says 2 of you. Tears, I interrupted, pulling the pearl cardstock from my purse. I'm right on time? Her mouth snapped shut. She retreated like a soldier who'd realized the battle was already lost. From above, Father Michael cleared his throat, trying to restore order. The organ swelled again, a desperate attempt to smooth over the crack I'd driven into the day. But the damage was done. The tension in the cathedral was so sharp, it hummed. I sat perfectly still, the wooden box pressing against my hip like a heartbeat. They thought this was my performance. They thought wearing white was the climax. But they didn't know this was just the opening act, because the moment would come soon enough when Father Michael would ask if anyone objected. And that was when the real wedding would begin. The organ hushed. Guests rose. All eyes turned as Sophia began her procession down the aisle. She looked ethereal in ivory lace roses woven into her hair, her face lit with triumph. She clutched Dad's arm like she was walking toward destiny. Except she wasn't. She glanced at me, mid-walk, eyes narrowing just slightly, when she saw I hadn't flinched, hadn't wept. I was steady, calm, watching. It rattled her more than if I'd stood up screaming. At the altar, Marcus shifted nervously, tugging at his cufflinks. The tux looked too heavy on him, as though the fabric itself knew it didn't belong to him. He smiled when Sophia joined him, but it was tight-forced eyes darting my way for a fraction of a second too long. Father Michael cleared his throat. Dearly beloved, we are gathered here today to join this man and this woman. The words blurred. The audience tried to settle, but the tension was a living thing, crawling under their skin. I could see people stealing glances at me, whispering behind programs. The woman in white, 3 rows back, wasn't just a scandal. She was a shadow over the altar. Then came the vows. Sophia insisted on going first, of course. She gripped Marcus's hands, her voice sweetened with poison. Marcus, you came into my life when I least expected it. You showed me what true love really looks like. Her gaze flicked toward me, sharp as glass. Some people think they understand love, but real love can't be forced. It just happens. And when it does, nothing can stand in its way. A ripple of murmurs. A few guests turned toward me, outright waiting for a reaction. I didn't move. My stillness was louder than her words. Marcus's turn. He stammered. Sophia, you bring excitement to my life. You're spontaneous fun. Everything I didn't know I needed, he swallowed hard. Not once did he say love. Father Michael nodded approvingly, as if nothing was amiss. Marriage is sacred, built on honesty, trust, and respect. And so before we proceed, if anyone here knows of any reason why these two should not be joined, speak now or forever hold your peace. The cathedral went silent. You could have heard the flicker of a candle. Sophia smirked. Actually smirked. Her eyes locked on me like a dare. Do it. I dare you. I rose slowly. Gasps rippled sharp and electric. Someone dropped a glass that shattered against the tile. 200 pairs of eyes widened as my heels clicked against the marble floor. I object, I said clearly. My voice carried without strain, steady as stone. Sophia's bouquet trembled in her hands. Marcus's jaw unhinged. Miss Anderson? Father Michael stammered. This is highly irregular. On legal grounds, I replied, pulling the wooden box from my purse. The words cracked through the air. Legal grounds. Not jealousy, not heartbreak, something far heavier. A man rose from the 5th row. James Mitchell, our grandmother's attorney. Father, my name is James Mitchell. I represent the Anderson estate. These documents are authenticated, notarized, and time-sensitive. They must be read today. Whispers ignited like a wildfire. Documents, estate time, sensitive. Sophia's face drained of color. This is ridiculous. You can't just... I said, stepping closer to the altar. My dress shimmered in the stained glass light, a ghost of the wedding she thought she stole. 6 months ago, Eleanor Anderson passed away. Our grandmother. She left a will. A very specific will, with very specific conditions. You're lying, Sophia hissed. Am I? James Mitchell lifted the lid of the box and handed Father Michael the papers. The priest's hands shook as he read. This states... He stopped, eyes widening. The entire Anderson estate, valued at $8 million, is left to Fiona Anderson conditional upon her marital status. The crowd erupted. Gasps, murmurs, phones whipping out to record. Sophia staggered. No, that's not possible. It is, I said. The heir must be unmarried or married to someone of demonstrable financial stability approved by the board of directors. And anyone who marries someone with outstanding debts over $50,000 forfeits everything. I turned, meeting Marcus's eyes. Last count, your gambling debts were over $200,000, weren't they? He swayed like a man hit square in the chest. Father Michael's voice grew firmer as he continued. It also states that any Anderson family member who engages in infidelity with an engaged person is permanently excluded from inheritance. Silence slammed down like a gavel. Sophia's lips parted, trembling. You knew. I met her eyes without blinking. I suspected. And you proved me right. The cathedral was chaos, now guests whispering, recording, leaning forward to catch every word. Marcus's parents paled in the front row, realizing their son's sins were spilling out in front of everyone. But for me, the moment was crystalline. Years of silence, years of being diminished, years of watching Sophia take what was mine burned away in a single truth. Patience wasn't weakness, it was preparation. And today, I wasn't the quiet sister anymore. I was the reckoning. The cathedral exploded into noise. People twisting in pews, whispering furiously, phones raised to capture the scene. Gasps layered over gasps until the sound was like a storm. Sophia's perfect bridal mask cracked wide open. No, this isn't happening. Her bouquet slipped from her hands, roses scattering across the marble like blood droplets. Marcus grabbed her wrist. Sophie, calm down. Calm down, she screamed, mascara already smudging under her eyes. You lied to me. You said you were fine financially, that the debts were handled. I thought they were... Marcus stammered, sweat beading at his temple. I just needed time. Time! Her laugh was manic jagged. You used me? You thought marrying me meant marrying into millions? She jabbed a finger at me. She set us up. She wanted this. I stood calm as ever, letting her meltdown feed itself. No, Sophia. Grandma wanted this. You just walked straight into her test. Dad lunged forward from the front row, face purple with fury. Enough, Fiona. Sit down right now. You're humiliating this family. Humiliating. I turned to face him, my voice steady. Or exposing you knew about the loans. You signed them against assets you didn't own. That's fraud. Grandma knew. The board knows. Gasps rippled again. Mom clutched Dad's arm, her pearls rattling as her hands shook. Please, Fiona, don't do this. Think about appearances. Appearances, I repeated softly. That's all any of you ever cared about. Behind me, James Mitchell stepped forward. For clarity, Mrs. Anderson retained 78% ownership of the firm. Mr. Anderson has been acting without authority. Legal action is forthcoming. The crowd roared louder, and I caught sight of phones live streaming. This wasn't a wedding anymore, it was a spectacle. Marcus tried to salvage dignity. This is insane. You can't just read a will and… Actually, one of Grandma's board members, Mrs. Chen, spoke from the fourth row, her voice cool and sharp. We can. We've waited 6 months for this. And Marcus Thompson, your gambling debts and fraudulent credit accounts make you ineligible under the morality clause. That alone disqualifies Sophia. Sophia froze like the words had slapped her. Then she spun back toward Marcus. You knew. You knew about the will. He flinched, guilt written across his face. That was all the answer she needed. You used me, she whispered, voice breaking. You only wanted me because you thought I'd inherit. I ruined my sister for you. Marcus tried to grab her hands again. No, Sophia, it's not like that. I care about you. She ripped away from him, laughing bitterly. Care, you told me I was better than her, that I deserved everything she had. You fed me that line while you dug yourself into debt. Then she turned to me, face contorted. You think you've won, don't you? You ruined my wedding. I didn't ruin anything I said evenly. You and Marcus did that the moment you betrayed me. Today just makes it official. At that, Sophia lunged. It wasn't graceful. It wasn't planned. She charged toward me in her gown veil, slipping hair falling apart. Gasps echoed as 2 bridesmaids grabbed her arms, holding her back as she screamed. You've always been jealous, always trying to make me look bad. I stood still, hands folded, unflinching. Funny, because today I didn't have to do a thing. You did it all yourself. Her shriek cracked the air. I'll contest this. I'll sue you. You can't just take everything. James Mitchell stepped in calm as ice. Actually, she can. You engaged in infidelity with your sister's fiancé while he was engaged. That's documented. The clause is airtight. You forfeited your rights the moment you chose Marcus. Marcus paled further. What clause? You never told me. Of course not. I cut in my eyes on him. You wouldn't have married her if you'd known. And that's exactly why Grandma kept it hidden. To reveal who you both really were. The silence that followed was crushing. Guests stared at Marcus like he was a criminal, and he was. One murmured, did she say fraud? Another whispered, 200,000 in debt. Sophia's knees buckled. She collapsed onto the altar steps, sobbing, veil tearing on the marble. This was supposed to be my day, she moaned. Marcus crouched beside her, but she shoved him away with both hands. Don't touch me. You ruined me. The priest. Poor Father Michael cleared his throat, his voice trembling. I believe we cannot proceed with this union. The crowd erupted. Some guests fled in embarrassment. Others leaned closer, hungry for more chaos. Dozens of phones were pointed at us, capturing every second. I knew this would go viral before sundown. Mom rushed towards Sophia, kneeling beside her, cradling her face like a child. Shh, baby. It's okay, we'll fix this. We'll fix everything. But even her tone was broken, desperate. The matriarch mask was gone. Dad barked at Marcus, voice thunderous. You worthless con artist! You've destroyed everything. Marcus's own father stepped in, then pale as a sheet. Son, is this true? The debts. The fraud. Marcus opened his mouth, but nothing came out. His silence was enough. His mother covered her face with her hands, shame radiating from her. And me? I simply stood there, calm in the chaos, the eye of the storm. The quiet daughter who had been dismissed, underestimated, excluded. The one they thought had nothing. And yet I held everything. The cathedral that had been meant for vows and roses now sounded like a stock market crash. Shouts, phones buzzing, heels clacking as people rushed toward the exits or toward me. The smell of champagne and perfume lingered in the air, thick with panic. I stood still at the altar steps, watching the chaos ripple outward. The same guests who had once treated me like wallpaper were now staring as if I had detonated a bomb. And maybe I had. One of the groomsmen hissed into his phone. It's already trending. Check Twitter. Bride's sister objects on legal grounds. A woman in the third pew whispered too loudly. $8 million. She's the heir. Can you imagine? It spread fast, shock transforming into fascination. People weren't just witnesses anymore. They were reporters, curators of my revenge. Hashtags were being born as I watched. Sophia was still collapsed on the floor, her once perfect gown puddled around her like melted sugar. Her sobs echoed loud enough to reach the rafters. Marcus tried again to help her up, but she shoved him with such venom he stumbled backward, colliding with the flower arch. White lilies scattered crushed under his shoes. Dad stormed toward me, face red, veins bulging. You don't understand what you've done, he spat. You've destroyed this family. No, I interrupted quietly, but firmly enough to silence him. You destroyed it years ago. Grandma just gave me the tools to show the world. His mouth opened and closed, but nothing came out. For the first time, my father had no words. Guests began slipping out, whispering, snapping photos. Every move Sophia made was caught on camera. Every shriek was amplified. And then came the murmurs that cut deeper than any scream. She always was spoiled. I heard she stole Fiona's fiancé. Now it makes sense. The narrative shifted right there in real time. Sophia's crown slipped and mine settled, not because I wanted it, but because the truth had weight and people couldn't unsee it now. I pulled my phone from my purse and saw the notifications explode, texts from coworkers, old friends, even strangers. Screenshots of live streams. My humiliation had become justice and it was being consumed like candy. Marcus turned on me, then desperate. You set me up. You could have told me. Why would I asked calmly. You knew exactly what you were doing when you signed my name on those credit cards. When you climbed into bed with my sister. You gambled with both of us. Now you get to collect your winnings. His face drained of color. This isn't over, he muttered, but his voice shook. Actually, I said, meeting his eyes it is. Behind him, 2 uniformed officers entered quietly. James Mitchell must have timed it perfectly. One approached Marcus, murmuring, "We'd like to ask you a few questions about recent financial activity." Marcus's head whipped around. "You called the cops?" I raised an eyebrow. "I didn't need to. You did that yourself." The crowd gasped again. Phones tilted higher, recording. Sophia buried her face in her hands. Mom stood now, clutching Sophia to her side like a shield. Her voice trembled. "We can fix this. We can keep it private." "It's not private anymore," I said, gesturing to the cameras. "It never will be. You wanted appearances. Well, here they are." The organist's poor man still sat at his bench, fingers hovering uselessly over the keys, waiting for someone to tell him what to do. The priest had stepped back, holding the will documents like they were burning his hands. It was James Mitchell who finally spoke above the din. "Ladies and gentlemen, this ceremony cannot continue. Please vacate the premises. Legal matters will proceed in the appropriate forums." Guests trickled out faster, some sneaking glances at me, like I was both villain and hero in the same breath. The whispers followed them, the kind that spread like wildfire. She inherited everything. The sister set her up. It's all on video. I stayed where I was, breathing slowly, watching as my parents scrambled to collect Sophia, who was too hysterical to stand. Marcus argued with the officers at the back, his voice breaking higher and higher. And I thought this is what collapse looks like. Not a bang, but 100 small cracks spreading all at once until the structure gives way. Inside, I felt strangely light. Not triumphant, not gloating, just free. For once, their judgment wasn't crushing me, it was crushing them. Ask yourself, what would you have done? Would you have walked out quietly, let them rewrite your story again, cast you as the bitter sister? Or would you have done what I did, stood your ground, let the truth roar and watch their empire fall apart? As I walked down the aisle, the same aisle I was once supposed to walk. As a bride, guests parted for me like water. Phones still recording, whispers still sharp, but no one blocked my way. The doors opened, sunlight flooding in. Outside, the world buzzed, ready to feast on the drama. And for the first time in years, I didn't care what they thought. I wasn't the weak one anymore. Behind me, I heard Sophia scream my name. Her voice cracked and raw, but I didn't turn around. Some echoes aren't worth answering. By the time I reached the parking lot, my phone was vibrating so violently, it felt alive in my hand. Notifications stacked like bricks, hundreds of texts, emails, missed calls. Some from friends I hadn't heard from in years. Some from coworkers who suddenly remembered I existed, and more from numbers I didn't recognize. When I slid into the back of the rideshare, the driver glanced at me in the rearview mirror, eyes widening. "You're the girl from the wedding, aren't you?" I didn't answer. I didn't need to. My face was already plastered across every social feed, frozen in mid-sentence, saying I object. By the time I reached my hotel, the video had over 1 million views. Hashtag swarmed, Shai wedding. Objection, Shai sister showdown. $8 million bombshell. I collapsed onto the bed, phone still buzzing, watching my life turn into a spectacle in real time. Strangers were debating my choices on Twitter like I was a character in a TV show. Half of them hailed me as a hero, finally a sister who refuses to be walked on. The other half painted me as a villain. She ruined her sister's wedding just to flex. I wasn't sure which was worse, their approval or their condemnation. Both felt unreal. Rachel called 3 times before I finally picked up. "Fiona. Oh my God, you're everywhere." My coworkers stopped a meeting to watch. "You're viral. Like internationally viral." I pressed my hand over my eyes. I didn't plan for this. Didn't plan. Girl, you walked into your sister's wedding in a white Versace dress and dropped an $8 million inheritance bomb. That's not just a plan, that's Shakespeare. I laughed weakly, though nothing felt funny. It doesn't feel like a victory, Rachel. It feels like exposure. Like I just turned myself inside out for the world. "Well," she said gently, "at least the world is finally paying attention." Meanwhile, my family was spiraling. Mom left 9 voicemails in a row, her voice unraveling more with each one. "How could you do this to Sophia? She's humiliated. Do you have any idea what people will say? This isn't what your grandmother wanted. You've ruined Thanksgiving, Fiona." That last one almost made me laugh. Thanksgiving was still months away. Dad's voicemail was angrier, his words clipped. "Fix this. Call James Mitchell. Tell him the documents were a mistake. Do you understand? You're playing with fire." As if I hadn't already been living in fire my entire life. But Sophia's texts were the worst. Long rambling messages alternating between fury and desperation. You destroyed me. I hope you're happy. This isn't over. I'll contest everything. You think you've won, but everyone sees you for what you really are. Then, only an hour later. Please, you don't understand. Marcus lied to me. He promised me he was stable. Fiona, I need your help. You can't let them take everything from me. We're sisters. It was whiplash, her flipping between venom and begging. But I couldn't bring myself to respond. Not yet. The news outlets picked it up next. A headline flashed across my phone, wedding drama, goes viral sister objects with $800 will. Reporters camped outside the hotel by morning. I pulled the curtains shut, heart hammering, as cameras flashed in the street below. I wasn't prepared for this. I had wanted justice, not fame. Inside, the silence was unbearable. Every sound, the elevator ding, the hum of the air conditioner felt amplified against the weight of what had just happened. Ask yourself, what would you do if your entire private war suddenly became public entertainment? Would you hide, or would you step forward and own it? By Monday, the fallout spread to the business world. Emails from architecture firms I had admired for years filled my inbox. They weren't condemning me, they were congratulating me. They wanted meetings, partnerships. They wanted me. Meanwhile, Dad's name appeared in the business section with a different headline, Anderson Firm, under scrutiny after will revelation. His carefully constructed reputation, the thing he had polished for decades, cracked in less than 24 hours. Sophia, too, was plastered across tabloids. Photos of her mascara-streaked breakdown at the altar went viral with captions like Bride's Nightmare and Fairy Tale Shattered. For once, the golden child wasn't bathed in admiration. She was the punchline. And me? I was somewhere in between a hero to some, a villain to others, but finally visible. That night, sitting alone in the hotel room, I realized something. All my life, I had begged for recognition from the wrong people. My parents, Sophia, even Marcus. People who thrived on keeping me small. Now the truth had ripped out into the open, raw, and messy, and I didn't need their approval anymore. I had something better proof. Proof that patience could outlast betrayal, that silence could sharpen into power, and that sometimes justice doesn't come with applause, it comes with aftermath. The aftershock of truth. 2 days after the wedding implosion, my parents showed up at my hotel uninvited. I knew it was them before I opened the door. Dad's sharp knock always 3 times, like he was summoning me instead of asking permission. When I opened it, Mom was already crying. Not delicate tears, but messy, desperate sobs that smeared her mascara. Dad, on the other hand, looked like a man who'd aged 20 years in 48 hours. Fiona, he said, voice tight, we need to talk. I stepped aside not because I wanted them inside, but because I wanted this over with. The moment the door closed, Mom collapsed onto the edge of the bed. How could you do this to us? She demanded, her voice cracking. Do you have any idea what people are saying about our family? About Sophia? I stared at her, incredulous. You mean, do I know what people are saying about the truth? Dad's jaw clenched. You embarrassed us in front of everyone. Important people. Clients. Marcus's family. I let out a bitter laugh. Clients, Marcus' family. Dad, you were lying to those people for years. You built your entire facade on a company you didn't even own. He flinched, but his pride forced him to stand straighter. That company was mine in every way that mattered. I built its reputation. I made the connections. You drained it. I cut in sharply. Loans, embezzlement, bad contracts. You hollowed it out until Grandma had to protect it from you. That's why she left it to me. Because she knew you'd burn it down to keep looking powerful. Mom shook her head, covering her ears like a child. This isn't what she wanted. She wanted the family to stay together. No, I said, my voice firm. She wanted the company to survive. She wanted her life's work to be in hands that wouldn't waste it. She saw what you refused to see, that Sophia was entitled, Dad was reckless, and you, Mom, were too busy defending them to notice the damage. Silence. Then Mom looked up, her eyes bloodshot. We did our best. Parenting is hard, Fiona. You were always so distant, so serious. Grace needed us more. That's the story you told yourselves, I whispered. That I didn't need anything, that I was fine being invisible. You never saw me. You never wanted to. For the first time, Dad's expression cracked. Not into anger, but into something else, regret. He sank into the armchair, shoulders slumped, his bravado gone. I didn't sleep after the wedding, he admitted quietly. I kept thinking about the photo albums, about how you were always in the background, about how we chose her over and over. His voice broke on the last words. I'd never seen him like this, stripped of arrogance. Why, I asked, barely breathing. Why was I never enough? He rubbed his temples like the weight of years was finally crushing him. Because Grace was like us. She fit the mold Grace's charm prestige. You were different. We didn't understand your world, so we dismissed it. You could have tried, I said softly, tears stinging my eyes despite my resolve. You could have asked questions, shown up, tried to learn, but you didn't. You let me fight alone. Mom started sobbing harder, but this time it didn't move me. Her tears had always been a shield, a way to deflect blame. I wasn't going to comfort her anymore. Then the knock came sharp, frantic. When I opened the door, Sophia stood there. Mascara-streaked hair undone, her designer clothes wrinkled like she hadn't slept. She looked less like my perfect sister and more like a broken doll. You have to help me, she blurted, stepping inside before I could stop her. They froze Marcus's accounts. The debt collectors are calling nonstop. I can't even pay next month's rent. You can't let this happen to me. I stared at her, stunned. Can't let this happen to you, Sophia? You built this cage yourself. She shook her head violently. No, Marcus did this. He lied to me. You have to understand, I didn't know about his debts. I didn't know about the fraud. I thought her voice cracked. I thought he loved me. I wanted to laugh. I wanted to scream. Instead, I just asked, and what about me, Sophia? Did you think about me when you crawled into bed with him? Did you think about me when you wore my grandmother's ring, used? My vendors mocked me with that invitation. Her face crumpled. I thought I won. I thought you'd always forgive me like you always did when we were kids. I thought, no, I cut in coldly. You didn't think? You just took. Because you knew mom and dad would cover for you, and I'd stay silent. But those days are over. Tears spilled down her cheeks. Please, you have the money now. You have the company. Can't you just help me? Just a little. I felt Dad's eyes on me, waiting to see if I'd crumble. Waiting to see if I'd slip back into the role of caretaker, the quiet sister, the bigger person. But I was done. No, Sophia. I said, my voice steady. I'm not your safety net anymore. Grandma didn't leave me this inheritance to bail you out. She left it to me because she trusted me to protect what she built. You'll have to learn to live without stealing from me. The silence that followed was thick with shock. Sophia's mouth opened, but no words came. She finally turned and stormed out, slamming the door so hard the walls shook. My parents stayed seated, stunned. Dad's eyes glistened, Mom's face pale. For once, they had no script. And in that silence, I realized something. This was the reckoning. Not just for them, but for me. For the first time, I wasn't the forgotten daughter. I wasn't the weak one. I wasn't the shadow. I was the one who finally said no. Monday morning arrived colder than the November air outside. My ride dropped me in front of Anderson and Associates, the company my grandmother had built, my father had squandered, and I had just inherited. I paused on the sidewalk, staring up at the glass tower. For years, I'd walked past these doors, knowing my name was on the letterhead, but not in the conversations. I'd been the invisible Anderson. Today, I was the CEO. Inside the lobby, buzzed with tension. Employees whispered in clusters, glancing at me with a mix of curiosity and fear. Some had worked under my father for decades, swallowing his arrogance because they believed he was untouchable. Others were young, restless, and eager for change. All of them were watching me. Miss Anderson, the board is waiting, the receptionist said, her voice tight. She didn't meet my eyes. Old habits die hard. The elevator ride felt like a climb into destiny. On the 21st floor, the boardroom doors loomed. I pushed them open and stepped inside. 5 faces turned toward me. Mrs. Chen, Mr. Yamamoto, Richard Brennan, and 2 others I'd only met in passing. All veterans of Grandma's quiet empire. James Mitchell sat at the end of the table, calm and steady, like the conductor of this entire symphony. Miss Anderson, Mrs. Chen said, rising, welcome. I took my seat at the head of the long mahogany table, the seat my father had occupied for 30 years. It still carried the imprint of his ego. But now it was mine. James opened the meeting. As of this morning, Fiona Anderson is the majority shareholder and rightful CEO of Anderson & Associates. Today's agenda: transition, stabilization, and strategy. The words landed heavy, like the turning of gears that could not be reversed. Mr. Yamamoto leaned forward, his tone blunt. Your grandmother trusted you. The question is, can we? The challenge was clear. They had seen leaders rise and fail. They weren't going to hand me their loyalty without proof. I met his gaze steadily. You don't have to trust me blindly. Judge me by results. But understand this, I won't run this company like my father. No shortcuts, no vanity projects, no bleeding us dry for appearances. My grandmother built this firm on grit and vision. I intend to do the same. Mrs. Chen gave a slight nod. What's your first move? I drew a breath. Rebuilding trust inside and outside these walls. That starts with transparency. Every employee will know the state of the company. Every client will know where we stand. No more secrets. Richard Brennan, whose partnership could make or break us, spoke next. Your father chased contracts like trophies. He wanted prestige, not sustainability. Where do you stand? I stand with substance over sparkle, I answered. We take projects that strengthen our foundation, not ones that look good in press releases. Quality over vanity. Longevity over flash. For a moment, the room was silent. Then Brennan nodded slowly. That's exactly what I wanted to hear. James slid a folder across the table. 3 contracts are pending, one with Brennan Industries, one with a European developer, and one with a tech company looking for sustainable office spaces. All major deals, all waiting to see if Anderson & Associates has a future. All eyes were on me. I opened the folder, scanning quickly. Numbers, projections, risk assessments. My father would have chosen the European deal, the flashiest, the most pressworthy. I looked up. We started with Brennan Industries. It's steady, profitable, and honors the relationship Grandma built. Then we expand outward. We earn stability before we chase headlines. Mrs. Chen smiled faintly. Smart. For the first time, I felt it not just the title of CEO, but the weight and possibility of leadership. The meeting lasted 3 hours. By the end, I had their unanimous vote of confidence. When the gavel came down, it wasn't just paperwork. It was the sound of an old order ending and a new one beginning. When I walked out, employees stood in the hall. Some clapped cautiously, some just stared. But they all knew the shift had begun. I thought I'd feel triumph. Instead, I felt a strange mix of power and grief. Power because I finally held the reins. Grief because it had taken a war with my own family to get here. Later that night, alone in my new office, the corner suite that had always been Dad's, I found myself staring at the city lights. The desk still smelled faintly of his cologne. His framed degrees and awards had been cleared out, leaving empty walls. I pulled Grandma's letter from my bag and read it again. Patience, my dear. The quiet ones change the world. I whispered into the stillness, I'll try not to let you down. Behind me, the door creaked open. James stepped in quietly. You did well today? Did I? I asked, suddenly unsure. He studied me. Your father thought leadership was about control. Your grandmother knew it was about stewardship. Today, you proved you understand the difference. His words steadied me, but I also knew the hardest battles weren't behind me. They were ahead, contracts to win trust to rebuild a family, still circling, like wolves. As James left, I looked back at the city and allowed myself one small smile. The invisible daughter was invisible no longer. If you've made it all the way to the end of this story, I truly appreciate you. Your time and support mean everything. Please remember to like, subscribe, and share your thoughts in the comments. Your engagement helps keep these stories alive and growing.